Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Paul from the Larchmont Public Library. Today we have Chris McCormack to talk about his travel experiences around the world. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Thank you, Paul, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, whether it was online or in person. We have one person in the audience right now, Claudia. We appreciate this is my second presentation with the Larchmont Public Library. We spoke in January, right? Yeah, I think it was January. I was on a road trip, 4-week road trip to California, camping across. And we spoke about, I don't even remember what we spoke about. The national parks. That's what we spoke about. It was a great time. Did you make it to that one online?
No, I haven't.
That's okay.
I was recently in California.
What part?
Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, cool. So, like I said, thank you everybody for being here today. Really appreciate it. What is the?
It looks good here, but it's cut off on the front hall. It's like half the screen.
Let me see what it looks like. Let's see. This is a great segue because from the moment I got here, we've been battling obstacles, and that's exactly what's going to happen when you travel. You are going to battle obstacles.
Yes.
How's that, Paul? Is that better?
Yeah.
We're good?
Hello.
We have another soldier in the audience.
Yeah, I just didn't drop anything on Celine.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. My name is Chris McCormack, and today we're going to be talking about how I travel, why you should travel, how you can travel if you have never done it before, for people out there. Been all over the world, been backpacking for 8 years now. I've been to 6 continents. The only one I haven't been to is Antarctica, not because I can't get the budget for it, but I can't bring myself to pay $6,000 or $7,000 for a week when I can go to South America for 6 or 7 months instead. So it's tough. It's a give and take, but you got to do it. So just to tell you a little bit about who I am. My favorite title in the whole world is Uncle Chris. I have 2 nephews and a niece. They're 8, 4, and 1. So they're a handful. They're a lot of fun. And also a humanitarian. When I went to Cuba for 3 months, I actually saw a group of kids playing baseball barefoot with no equipment, baseballs that have been used since the 60s. And I still play baseball. So I was inspired because I was thinking to myself, these kids don't have to be here. They want to be here. Whereas when I was growing up, we had sponsors and scoreboards and bats. We didn't have to worry about anything. So when I came back to, I'm from New Jersey, by the way. When I went back to Jersey, I started this Cuba Baseball Foundation. We were able to raise over $5,000. I brought 120 baseballs, 40 bats, gloves, and cleats, and 8 sets of captors equipment to Cuba. And I just gave it to people anywhere and everywhere on the island. And the most rewarding experience in my whole life. Also a photographer. So all the photos that you see in this presentation are photos that I have taken, except the screenshots from Google, which will make sense of why they're not from Google, but from websites that I use. And also a public speaker. I love talking about traveling, especially I love going to colleges and universities and teaching kids how to travel to, spend their money on better experiences, more enriching, fulfilling life lessons instead of spending their money on Jordans and Gucci, Prada, all that stuff. Nothing wrong with those things, nothing wrong with them, but it doesn't determine the value of a person. And like I said, I'm a traveler. I just love it. It's changed my life more than I could ever imagine. I went to Australia when I was 20 years old, and I'll never forget when I was on the plane and I saw the coastline of Australia for the first time. And I said, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. And I finally knew how Michael Jordan felt when he picked up a basketball. I said, yep, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. So what you're about to see is this next photo is a before I started the travel. So this is me. I went to Coastal Carolina University, and I was part of an organization there that wasn't enriching me, wasn't making me a better person, just not something that I was helping me become a better person and grow. And in this person that you see in this photo right here, he's insecure, he's not confident, really lost himself because he was a leader in high school. He was a leader his whole life. And then he went to college, joined an organization that really, instead of helping somebody grow, was more about putting people down. And I really lost myself, very, very much so. Almost to the point where, I had an experience where I was humiliated in front of a group of people. And I'll never forget walking back to my house and saying, I got to make a change. Like, who are you? I don't even know who you are anymore. You let someone talk to you like that. You let someone treat you like that. You used to be a leader and now you're following the crowd. Why are you following people when you were born to lead? So after this, I used to have long hair. I used to be much longer. And the person in this picture is confident, has overcome obstacles, trials, and tribulations along the way that have really helped me grow and have just more appreciation, way more humble, and really aware of my surroundings and what's happening in this world. And just, in the environments that I put myself in and the people that I surround myself with. And this is a big part of just traveling. This picture on the left before, I was taken in a post office in New Jersey, and the picture on the right was taken on a beach in Bali. So you can really see the transformation of caterpillar to cocoon to butterfly. Now, one of the things that I want to talk to everyone about today is when people think of travel, they think of Chris McCormack. And when they think about me traveling, they think of backpacking, hostels, roughing it out. When I was in Cambodia, my budget was $9 a day. That included 3 square meals. I was staying at a hostel that was $1 a night, and also included 8 beers because a beer in Cambodia is 25 cents. I am not saying that traveling the way I travel is mandatory or compulsory. I'm just suggesting that, instead of, and this is really, a major talking point when I speak with colleges and universities, is instead of going to a resort, for $2,000 for 7 days, go to Costa Rica, go to Guatemala for 2 or 3 weeks, and you'll probably spend just as much money, and if not, become a better person by the end of it. And you might even remember a thing or two instead of getting blackout intoxicated the entire time. So I always tell people, okay, listen, if you can't go to Cambodia for your first trip, that's not a big deal. If you can't go to California for your first trip, that's not a big deal. If you can't make it to Missouri, that's okay. Wherever you have to go to travel your travel, and that's just what you have to do. I live in New Jersey, and I live close to Morristown. It was a huge Civil War, excuse me, a huge Revolutionary War meeting points. George Washington was there, Thomas Jefferson, all the big boys. And there are places that people from all around the world travel to Morristown to learn about history, see what is happening. And guess what? I've never been there. So I just try and tell people, listen, travel your travel. You don't have to throw yourself into the ocean so quick. Although personally, for me, that's how I learn more than ever, is just throw me to the wolves, throw me into the fire, and I'll just find my way. And we're going to talk about failures for sure when traveling. Next thing is the travel fund. So I have a travel fund. It used to be in a Nesquik powder container. It used to be in a Lipton tea container. Depends on, just whatever trip I'm doing. But the point of the travel fund is that when you put money into that fund, it never comes out until you go on that trip. You can't use it for lunch. You can't use it for happy hour. You can't use it for an Arizona iced tea. Not even that. I don't care. So the point of the travel fund is you need to commit to this trip. And a lot of people, it's interesting. It's a huge misconception about people think, okay, let's say we're going to go to Cuba September 1st, right? People think the trip starts September 1st. Nope. Trip starts the day you want to start sacrificing and making the commitments to get to September 1st. That's when the trip really starts. So it's important that people remember, it's not going to be easy to do the things that you want to do and go see the things you want to see. You're going to have to sacrifice along the way. That's just life, whether you're going to Cuba or you want to go to the next part of your career, In order to go somewhere, you have to leave something behind. So some of the resources that I use, and I this first one I talk about, I don't care. I tell homeless people when I see them, they need to use this app if they want to start traveling. It's called Skyscanner. It's an app and it's also a website. So it's called skyscanner.com. And the coolest part about this app is that you can type in, you know what, I'll just show you. So you can type in from New York, any airport. There's 4 airports in New York: Stewart International, JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. Even though Newark's in New Jersey, they throw Newark into New York. Next, you put your dates in. They're in, the format is different, but you put your dates in and you can actually type in to everywhere. It will show you everywhere in the world that you can go for those dates. And this is what it'll look like right here. So United States, $92. That's probably Boston or Myrtle Beach, maybe. That's probably with Spirit. I would not recommend flying Spirit Airlines. Do not do it. It's worth the money to not take Spirit. But so for example, when I went to Cuba for the first time, I got my flight off of Skyscanner and I was in Miami. I took a train from New Jersey. I went all the way down to Miami and I stopped at different points along the way to stay with friends in DC, Charleston, which is my favorite city in America. Real quick, there's going to be a lot of tangents, but don't worry, we're always going to come back to what we're talking about. So when I went to Cuba, I flew out of Miami to a place called Holguin, which is on the eastern side of Cuba. Got my flight for $60 from Miami to Holguin direct. I had no layovers. There was nothing. And it was pretty cool because the first time I went there in 2016, the runway was a dirt road. And the last time I went there in 2019, the runway had become paved. So it was cool to see what it was like before. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? To kind of see, things change like that. Also real quick, I just want to say, anybody at home, if you have any questions, you can write it in the chat box. Paul, if I don't see the question, can you can interrupt us, no big deal. And Claudia, if you have a question, you can ask it, and Miss whatever Bigot, nice to meet you. Thanks for being here. If you have any questions, you can.
Yeah, I have a question about Cuba.
Yep.
So you can just travel as an American citizen to Cuba, or do you need a visa?
So at the time, you could go from the third time I went, which was in 2019, I believe. I flew from JFK to Havana, and it wasn't anything. It was a visa on arrival, so you don't have to apply for any of that. Yep. So that's a great question. Some countries, when you do your research, some countries do require visas that you have to fill out before you go. Most countries, now obviously it depends on where you're from, for most countries, for American citizens, when you arrive in the airport, you can apply for a visa on arrival. It's also known as VOA. So that's more my style. Instead of, I don't want to lock myself into going somewhere and apply for the visa, pay for the visa, and now I have to go there. I try and limit as much handcuffing as possible. First time I went to Bali in 2014, they had visas on arrival there. Now you don't even need, post-COVID, I'm not sure how all that's working, but at the time they actually got rid of visas and you can literally just walk in and it was as if you were crossing from Canada to America. Another resource that is, really beneficial, maybe not for folks who are going to stay in hostels, but you can actually find some really, really, really nice hostels on this app, this orange app. It's called Hostel World. So it's also an app. It's also a website. And basically, you could type in any city in the world and more likely than not, there's going to be 1 or 2 hostels that pop up. They show you pictures, they have reviews, breakfast included, how's the Wi-Fi, cleanliness. These 2 apps, I look at probably 3 or 4 times a week, because if you have a little mini trip pop up in your head, you can literally figure out your airfare and find a place to stay in 10 minutes if you really want to. So it's a great way to kill time at work when I'm bored. I'm also a bartender. I work at a golf club in New Jersey, Morris County Golf Club, if you ever heard of it. So sometimes when it's a little slow, I just dream and imagine about places that I can go to. And I've actually started to figure out, here's my plan of how I'm going to get to Antarctica for cheap. I've done a lot of research on this. You can actually get on a last minute boat ride. They just sell the seat for, so usually it's around $7,000 to $10,000, depending on, which company you go with, how luxurious it is. But I've read online that you can get on a boat for $2,000 for a 7-day trip. So here's how I'm going to get that. I'm going to plan a 3-week trip to that town that they leave out of. It's called Ushuaia. It's in Argentina. However, I'm going to go because I found a hostel for $4 a night and it looked pretty nice. So I'm going to go to this hostel, stay for 3 weeks, and go down to the docks every day and see if I can hop on, because even if I pay for 3 weeks at a hostel, it's only $4 a day. So what's 85 or whatever that comes out to, $84 to save $4 or $5,000. And, it's funny. People always ask me, oh, what was your favorite food? And, how was the food? I'm bad when it comes to that. My budget doesn't really require or allow for experimental meals. So I'm usually eating 4 eggs and a banana for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And I love it. I absolutely love it because I'm able to experience this world. I'm able to meet people at these hostels from all over the world. Your greatest resource is the people that you meet. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And I have met so many people from hostels that I've still stayed in contact with, that when I go to these countries, I will call them or text them and say, hey, I'm in your town. Can I stay with you for a couple of days? No problem. Come over. I mean, that's amazing. And that was from staying at a hostel that was $6 a night. I actually got invited to one guy's wedding in France. So he's Moroccan and his wife is Moroccan and he's Algerian. So I got invited to a Muslim wedding. It was the craziest experience of my whole life. They do this thing where they put the bride up on a huge carriage. I was one of the guys nominated to hold her up. Anyway, so, it's just really cool to be able to meet so many different types of people, have really interesting conversations, whether it be about politics, sports, what you do today. One of my favorite stories is I got into a hostel one time at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up to people getting ready for the day at 6 or 7 a.m. And it was a group of Swedish people. And I woke up and I said, what are you guys doing today? They had a whole day planned out. And I said, you mind if I come with you? They're like, no, come with us. I didn't plan anything. And I did an awesome waterfall tour. We were able to try grapes. The first time I ever had grapes with seeds in them, I almost cracked my teeth. That was an experience, but it's just so cool to meet people. And, I highly recommend journaling when you're traveling, because, you're not always going to remember the little things and the tiny things, the tiny jokes, or, seeing a woman get bit by a dog on a motorcycle, stuff like that, you might not remember. Next app is called Wanderu. It's spelled Wanderu, Wanderu. I believe this might just be an app. I don't know if it's a website, but I use this for domestic travel, for bus and train fare. So when I go to DC, I go directly to Wanderu, and I've gotten bus rides for $5 round trip from Newark, Penn Station to Union Station in Washington, DC. Sometimes if airfare out of Boston is cheaper than airfare out of the 4 airports in New York, then I'll take a $20 one-way bus ride up to South Station, and I'll fly out of Logan Airport to save $200-$300 for the trip. It's a little bit inconvenient because you're going out of your way, but when you're going to travel for 3 or 4 months, what's another 4 hours on a bus to save a couple $100? Next one is the man in seat 61. This started off as a hobby. Some guy, it was a hobby. He loved trains, and he was able to create a huge community of people. It's kind of like a Wikipedia, but for train travel around the world. So people will type in, their experiences about riding on a train in Switzerland or riding on a train in Nigeria or Angola and tell you about the prices and the seats. I used this when I was in Myanmar, which is a country in Asia. It used to be called Burma. And I got a train. I got a 15-hour train ride for $3. And it was the most amazing train ride I've ever been on in my life, because it was basically the same trains from the late 1800s. I mean, nothing in that country is relatively new. So when you first start, the train would like wobble back and forth, and you hear the so that was really cool. And I just, for me, especially when you travel, even for 3 weeks, busing and train rides, you really get to see the whole country. You really get to see, going through different climates, going through different bus stations, and just seeing the different rural and urban areas, seeing how people live. It's really fascinating. This card right here, if you don't have it already, it's American Airlines A Advantage card. I was on a flight back from Colombia, South America, and with American, and they, how they at the end is, fill out this pamphlet and you'll get a promo code for, and you get points. So for this one, all you had to do was buy a cup of coffee. There wasn't a minimum. You didn't have to spend $2,000 in 3 months. Nothing like that. And I was really aware to double check that with the stewardess who was asking me. I said, so I can just buy a cup of coffee. She's like, you just buy a cup of coffee and you get 60,000 miles. I said, I'll take 3 of those, please. So I used this card to go to Maui, which is an island in Hawaii, if you're not familiar with that. I used this card to go to Maui for 3.5 weeks, and my airfare was $10.65. So I used every single mile towards that, and the balance remaining was, actually, I'm sorry, it was $11.20. That was the difference from the miles and what I owed. So, and because of this card, I was able to go humpback whale watching and capture this photo. If you've never been to Maui, I highly recommend you go during whale season. There's nothing like seeing a 30-ton animal jump out of the ocean. It is absolutely incredible. So the whales are in Maui during, I believe it's mid-October till about April 1st. And the reason why they go to Hawaii is because, especially Maui in particular, is because the bay there is protected by a bunch of islands. And it's the perfect place for them to give birth to their calves. They raise their calves there. I actually heard a fact on one of the whale watching tours that calves will grow 1,500 pounds a day while they're in Maui for 5 months, which is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then the last one, which is a big one, it's called Campendium. It's a website and also an app. I use this when I am doing my cross-country road trips and camping. So the point of this, it's basically the hostile world of camping, but it's even cooler because there is a organization in America called Bureau of Land Management. So basically, it's called BLM Land, and in BLM Land, you can just go camp there for free. There's no registration. There's also no, bathrooms or showers, but, to go out there for 2 or 3 days and be completely, this next picture. So basically I used Campendium to get to this camping spot, which was right outside the Badlands in South Dakota. And one of the quietest places I've ever been in my whole life. Not one thing was there. And as the sun was going down, I actually heard the coyotes howling in the distance as I was sitting around my fire drinking instant coffee. It was really cool. It was really cool. So yeah, Campendium, it's a really good one. And it's also, it's cool because there's a huge community of people who do RV life and van life. So, and people who have, they're called fifth wheelers. It's basically when you see a pickup truck and then there's like a fortress on the back of it, that's a fifth wheeler. And So again, this is a user based website. So people will leave reviews. Hey, you know, if you don't have a high rising car, I wouldn't recommend going down this trail. It's too rough or it's too muddy. So if you have an RV, it's not going to work. It's not. People say whether there's reception for Verizon, T-Mobile. It's pretty interesting. Now the next part of traveling and in life, there's so many parts of this presentation where travel and life just go hand in hand. So right here, it's really, really important that we go out of our comfort zone, because that's where all of your goals and dreams are, really. And essentially, as you can see in this picture of the comfort zone, you and the goal, this picture is literally your comfort zone. You don't know what's on the other side of that, and it's really scary to fight through. There could be monsters, there's going to be failure, that's for sure. There's going to, obstacles. So uncertainty, doubt. So we always just psych ourselves out. We never leave this area because we don't know what's on the other side. So that's why, and again, this goes back to travel your travel. I get it. It's hard to go to Cambodia when you're looking into the fog like this and you've never done this in your life. But when you do these things and you really get out of your comfort zone, you are going to learn so much about yourself that you've never even known was possible. And I still have a comfort zone for sure. There are things that make me uncomfortable. And I always find myself saying, after I follow through and I complete the task at hand, or I do what I said I was going to do, I always think to myself, before I did this, I was so scared and I was so afraid. Now that I've done it, it wasn't even 1% close to how bad I thought it was going to be or how scary it was going to be. And I just think, we are ourselves our own worst enemy. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that I try to tell people is, if you talk to yourself and gave advice to yourself as if you gave advice to a friend, we would be way better off, because you would never tell your friend, oh, you're terrible. What are you doing? You're a failure. You wouldn't say that to a friend. So if you talk to yourself as if you're talking to a friend and be nice to yourself, it's just, life's a lot easier. It really is. So again, this leads us into failure. And I can't even tell you how many bumps, bruises, burns, scrapes, and just failures I've had while traveling. I've been ripped off so many times. I've overpaid for things. I've been taken advantage of about prices. I been discriminated against, whatever. I mean, there's just so many failures to be had in this world, in this life, especially when you travel. There's gonna be obstacles. That's just what it is. There's no way around it. And I think really, if you fail as much as possible, and when I mean fail, I don't mean don't prepare for a test, don't prepare, practice your baseball swing. I'm saying if you prepare as much as possible and you still fail, then that means that you still have room to grow. If you keep failing towards success, you're gonna get there. It's just it's just gonna happen. It has to happen. That's just how it works. I don't know why. I didn't make up the rules, but I've just learned that the more you fail, the closer you are to succeeding. The obstacle truly is the way. And I know that when we do fail, it feels like we're drowning in water and we can't breathe and we're swallowing water and we're panicking. But it's actually the best thing that could happen to a human is fail. And once we realize that, like, I've just shifted my whole mindset of, okay, if you fail, then that means that you can be better at something. And when you shift your mindset towards that, instead of saying, I'm a failure, I'm never going to do this again, this is the reaction you're going to have. You're like, oh my gosh, I just figured this out. Life hack. This is my cousin. He lives in Maui. And that's why I was able to go for 3.5 weeks, because I would not have been able to afford the accommodation there. It's very expensive. But, another thing of why we really, really should travel is because you're able to zoom out and really get a picture and an understanding about what is happening in your life, the relationships you have, the commitments that maybe you said you were going to make, you didn't make. You're just able to analyze your life in a different way. And I always say this when I leave the tri-state area on all my trips. You don't realize that you're in the rat race until you're out of the rat race and you're able to be like, wow, I was really caught up there. I was really, really going through the rat race of traffic, my job, bills, my patience got just grinded down to nothing, and you don't realize how deep you are in the mud until you're able to get yourself out of the mud and you can look back on it and say, wow, I was really going through it back there. So, this road trip that I was just on, it was a really, it was a difficult road trip in terms of the fact that I was going through something at the time and I was driving, 10, 11 hours a day at some points. So, just going down the rabbit hole in your mind, of course, and that's when I really feel like you're able to really connect the dots because you're able to see all the dots and connect them and say, okay, well, this is why my friend was doing that. This is why she was doing this. This is why, and it all makes sense when you're able to really take yourself out of that situation. So once you're able to zoom out, you learn more about what's important and you're able to say, okay, I need to really just slow it down here. And that leads me to appreciation. There is nothing more humbling than going to Asia and having to go to the bathroom in a hole in the ground. And you can say to yourself, wow, Port Authority bathroom doesn't sound too bad right now because at least I have a sink and a toilet. So the appreciation part of traveling, it's just, I've never heard anybody say that they didn't enjoy the experience of traveling. They may not have enjoyed where they've been, and that's okay. But it at least, when you go somewhere that you don't like, it makes you appreciate where you are, where you do come from. Say, wow, I really love pizza. I wish I would love a slice of pizza right now. And I'll never forget when I was in Myanmar. So I went to Asia for 3 months. I went to Myanmar for 1 month, and excuse me, this was the middle of the 3 months. So I was in Myanmar, staying at a hostel, and I cried all night because I just wanted to have a chicken parm hero. And I knew that I was so far away of anything being a chicken parm hero. And I remember saying to myself, wow, I have 6 weeks left until I'm able to even have that. So to have that breakdown, traveling just grinds you down. It just beats you down because, you have a backpack. It's a grind for sure. I mean, when you go for 3, 4, 5 months, it's a grind. I don't know how people do it all the time for their lives. I mean, I respect it a lot and I commend them for that. But when you're able to take yourself out of the situation, analyze it from above, you really can appreciate, like, wow, this is something that I missed the mark on this. I need to talk to this person. I need to resolve that issue with this person. I need to start being nicer to my body and how I treat it in terms of exercise and my diet. So, and another thing too is, you meet so many people traveling and you hear so many different stories about how they say, oh, I wish I did this or I wish I did that. And that's why I have this quote in here. It says, learn to appreciate what you have before time forces you to appreciate what you had. Because there's nothing really as bad as regret. Regret is very painful. And I've experienced that. I'm pretty sure probably everybody has experienced that in their lives. And it's a very painful emotion because usually regret happens when you get to a point of no return and you can't take back what you said, you can't take back what you did, or you can't do what you should have done. So, and you're able to think about all this when you're on a train for 10, 12 hours and you're not looking at social media. You're not listening to music because your phone's died because there's no outlets on a train. So I think it's really important that people get out there in some capacity. And I wish that people did travel more because I really, truly think it would make people really appreciate where they came from and what we have here, especially in America. I mean, we have everything we could ever imagine. I've seen people live in 4x4 shacks, and they still invited me into their home and gave food out of their pantry when they had 3 kids to feed and they're malnourished as it is, and they're giving me food. It's very humbling. It really makes you think about, wow, we have a lot here. We have way more than we need. So this leads me to, for me, these are my 3 what matters most, and I think they're all kind of connected. Obviously, this isn't going to be for everyone else, and that's no problem. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just, sharing my thoughts and my opinions, and this is how I travel, and this is why I travel. Everything that we're talking about right now, is how I travel and why I travel. First and foremost, our health. If you're not healthy, then you can't really do much. You could have 20, 100 million, thousand, billion dollars, and if you can't even get out of bed, then what's really the point? You can't even go to the park. You can't do anything. So I think it's really important to treat our bodies with as much respect as possible, because we only get one of these things. We can't trade it. As much as people want to try and fix themselves and get a nose job or whatever they got to do, we only get one body in our whole lives. It's so important to treat it with respect, because if you're healthy, right, whatever that definition is to you, it's all different to people. It's all relative. But if you're healthy, then that means that you're able to travel, you're able to do things. And if you're healthy, generally, there are obviously freak incidences and tragedies that happen. But if generally, if you're healthy, that means you have more time. So if you have more time, that means that you can do more things that you want to do because you're healthy, whether it's traveling or sewing, whatever you like to do, whatever that makes you happy, then you need to find a way to continue to do that and, make as much time for that as possible, because it's tough to keep grinding yourself down and not, recharging yourself with passions and things that you enjoy to do. Like for me, I love playing baseball. I still play baseball. So I grind from Sunday night till Sunday morning. And then Sunday morning, I play 2 baseball games from 9 to 3 p.m. And that's my outlet. That's my release. That's how I'm able to recharge for the whole week and say, okay, it's okay. I'm making time for, the things that I love to do. So again, whatever that is to you, it could be anything, reading, cooking, baking. If you like to fix cars, how many people have projects that they want to do, but they just don't have the time? I saw a phrase one time, someone told me in Asia, they said, everybody should meditate. If you have time, you should meditate for 20 minutes every day. I said, oh, okay. And then the person said, and if you don't have time, you should meditate for 40 minutes every day. I said, I like that. I'm going to use that. I really like that. And I think that makes so much sense because, again, you really have to appreciate time is not going to stop for anybody, and I can't even believe that I have 2 nephews and a niece already, and the oldest one's 8 years old. It's just like, where is the time going? So to appreciate our time and maximize it and not waste a second, it's really important in this life because we're not going to get it back. So our health, our time, if we're healthy, we can do more things that we like. If we have time, that means that, we can do the things that we like to do. And more importantly, spend time with our families, which outside, what else is there than family? Honestly, that really, truly matters at the end of the day. I don't know. But to me, I've reflected on this many times. These 3 are the most important things, I think, and that matters the most. And, if you're healthy, that means you have more time. If you have more time, that means you can have more time with your family, watch them grow, celebrate, exciting landmarks, milestones, opportunities, be able to grow with them. It's really cool. And I love seeing my nephews and my niece grow. It's just, time goes by so fast. And I'm so grateful and appreciative of all 3 of these things, that I try and keep all these 3 in balance, because I think that's it's a difficult balance, because like I said, living in the tri-state, New York, New Jersey, you can really get caught in the rat race. And to be able to take even just 30 minutes and have a catch, with my nephew, or pick up my nephew from school, I think it's the biggest honor in the world. And like I said, Uncle Chris is my favorite title I've ever had in my whole life. It's truly an honor. So we talked about travel your travel. It's really important that, and another thing about travel your travel is, on social media, which is smoke and mirrors, there are people who are traveling on private jets, flying first class with, how am I forgetting? Flying first class with Emirates, $20,000 a seat. Nothing wrong with those. Nothing wrong with those things. Nothing. If you got it, more power to you. That's amazing. But I think the ripple effect of that is people looking at their phones and saying, wow, I can't travel like this, so I'm just not going to travel at all. That's ridiculous. It's okay to fly coach. I mean, it's not that big a deal. if you have to do what you have to do to go to the places that you want to go to. Anything other than that is just an excuse. Oh, I don't want to fly coach. I can't go here. Oh, I can't be on a bus that long. Oh, there's just so many excuses. So travel your travel, whatever you have to do. If you have to fly first class and you have the money, then do it. But if you don't, that doesn't mean that you can't travel. And that's kind of one of my biggest driving points, is just because you don't fly first class doesn't mean you can't go somewhere. Skyscanner, don't forget that app. It's phenomenal. I look at that app every day of my life. Hostel World, not as much. Skyscanner, every day. So I'm actually going to Guatemala in September for about 2.5 weeks. I got my flight for $80 because I was just scanning. I was just browsing through it. I saw it. I said, okay, $80 for a direct flight from Newark to Guatemala City, no brainer. And it's not Spirit. Done. Did it. So I'm thinking, okay, even if it doesn't happen, it's only $80. Not a big deal. So definitely check out Skyscanner. Failure, it's just inevitable. And if you're afraid to fail, you'll never succeed, because in order to succeed, you have to fail. It's just the only way. One of my favorite phrases is, quotes is, the master has failed more times than the student has even tried. That is really powerful. The master has failed more times than the student has even tried. If you think about it, how many times do we do something and say, oh, it's not working, we just give up? I'm guilty. I do it for sure. I've done it many times with my presentations. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, this didn't work. I'm not going to do it again. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that you need to find a different angle. You need to change things up. Maybe you need to put more work in, more practice. I don't know. That's what failure teaches you, though. Zooming out, you're able to zoom out on roads like this in this picture. I'll tell you that much. That was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. That was really, maybe not the craziest thing. I do that sometimes. I go a little appreciation. I want to say thank you to everybody who has showed up today in person. Paul, I appreciate you. Everybody who's logged in online, thank you very much. It's an honor to have just an hour of your time. We're gonna wrap it up soon because I know the Rangers are on tonight, so we got a big game 5, and I want to distract that. We're gonna lose some viewers when 8 o'clock hits, and what matters most. But, finally, I just want to say that none of these things really matter in terms of appreciation. I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do that. One of the hardest things that I had to learn in my life was giving myself permission to do the things that I wanted to do. It's very hard. I've been going against the grain for 8 years here. I graduated college. I didn't go get a job. I drive an 03 Camry. Not a big deal, because I'm doing what I have to do in order to do what I want to do. So to me, it's a no-brainer. But I just want to say that it's, unless you give yourself permission to be yourself and be who you are, whether, you want to go for a bike ride. I mean, people are so afraid to just go ice skating because they've never gone ice skating before, but they want to try it. Just go and try it. More importantly, when it comes to traveling, it's really hard to be able to say, hey, I'm, going to my job and saying, I need 10 days off. I need 7 days off. I need 12 days off, whatever. And I get that. But And a lot of times I hear people say, oh, I can't afford to travel, whether it be X, Y, or Z. I can't afford to travel. And I say to them, but can you afford not to go personally for who you are, your being, your soul, everything? Can you not afford this? It's really, in order to get out of a rut, you have to get in motion. So it's really tough, and I get it. I go through ruts as well, and that's life. And it's just about accepting the ebbs and flows and understanding that it's a feeling and it's an emotion, it's going to pass, but just give yourself permission to do the things that you want to do. And it's really interesting about how many opportunities will open up and how many avenues will open up if you just allow yourself to do the things that you want to do. Have the courage to be yourself. So with that being said, just go for it. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. I want to say thank you to Paul Doherty and the Larchmont Public Library for having me today. It was well worth the car ride. I sat in 2.5 hours of traffic. It was worth it, though. It was worth it. I want to say thank you to everyone who showed up, logged in. Paul, did we get any questions on the chat box? Okay. If anybody has any questions, you can write it in the chat box.
I can let people unmute themselves if you
Sure,
like.
yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
I'm just going to stop the recording here.
Okay.